Do you ever find a figure that's so bad, so unbelievably shit in both form and function that it's absolutely abhorrent, but you still can't help but like it a little? Like, I'm not talking about just a guilty pleasure, I'm talking about something that has few, if any, redeeming qualities, something that no one has any business actually liking. No? Just me? Fuck. Welcome to Kit Reviews. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class SOUNDWAVE. This evil Decepticon was released in 2020 as part of Wave 10 of the Deluxe assortment, and shares parts with the Deluxe Class SOUNDWAVE from 2019. This figure represents SOUNDWAVE's appearance in the 2009 film Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Bayverse SOUNDWAVE debuted in Revenge of the Fallen, but you'd be forgiven for forgetting that, since he was barely in the film to begin with. Even then, he was only shown on screen in his alternate mode, some kind of alien satellite. I'm sure all those who wished him to be some kind of surveillance truck are still seething about it. As a representation of that mode, SOUNDWAVE is not great. He completely lacks any kind of structure or form besides the clearly discernible robot limbs, which don't even compress enough to keep these massive glaring gaps away. You can see right through him from just about any angle, especially head-on. Speaking of heads, SOUNDWAVE is visible in this mode, which is actually screen accurate. Well, the idea, at least, considering that the design itself doesn't look much like what was in the film. He has 3 large fins, presumably solar panels, but the outer 2 are considerably smaller than they should be. The topmost panels are also incredibly flat and boring, devoid of much sculpted detail. It's such a shame that SOUNDWAVE's alternate mode suffers so much, considering it was the only one they had to get right in the first place. As much as I dislike the original Revenge of the Fallen SOUNDWAVE figure, for reasons that I'm sure don't apply to every copy, that toy was able to knock the design out of the park. And even if some things were inaccurate, it at least looks solid, cohesive, and interesting. Studio Series SOUNDWAVE just half-asses what should have been the primary focus of the figure. It appears a lot of the resources allocated for this figure were dedicated to his sole accessory, this translucent blue plastic stand. Its peg sits a couple of inches off of whatever surface you happen to place it on, and it features a swivel at the base and a hinge near the top. It's not the best. I'll just stick with my Tamashii Nation stages, thanks. I find it a little strange that, even though Transformers have made figure stand compatible holes standard since 2014 or so, that it took this long for a figure to actually come with one. SOUNDWAVE's transformation is pathetically simple. At only 10 steps, he's the least complexity-gifted transforming figure in all of Studio Series. Despite that, there's actually a lot of variability and give when it comes to where certain pieces go and how they should move between modes. For instance, there are these pods on ball joints and hinges on either side of SOUNDWAVE's chest that you could either display going up, going forward, or tucked away inside his torso. The instructions don't say anything about the spikes on his shoulders, but I fold them flush when in satellite mode. Finally, the instructions say to keep the main solar panel folded down like coattails of sorts, but I prefer to raise it up against his back. Some may consider such ambiguity a good thing, as it offers for some varied display options, but I just see it as a lack of focus. Since SOUNDWAVE never transformed during Revenge of the Fallen, his Studio Series figure has the luxury of having carte blanche when it comes to the robot mode. Even so, I feel like they missed the mark. I'm not saying the design is trash or anything, it just looks like one of the myriad generics found throughout the movieverse than SOUNDWAVE. Viewed with that lens, I'd say the robot design is pretty sweet, with its wide shoulders and lithe but firm legs. These proportions are right up my alley. The aesthetics work to his favor as well, even if some of the components are recycled from SOUNDWAVE's earlier Dark of the Moon-inspired iteration, most notably the thighs, which weren't even remolded to remove the gas caps. Plural. Like most Bayverse Decepticons without a Constructicon prefix, SOUNDWAVE is almost entirely a dull gray and silver, with the only real feature of note being this central turbine on his chest, popping with Allspark blue. Surrounding it are some errant freckles that, well, I don't have much idea why they're there. SOUNDWAVE has 16 points of dedicated articulation, plus a few more if you extend it to transformation joints, but he has his fair share of problems. The outward shoulder swivels have the potential to go out all the way, but the solar panels grafted onto his wrists get in the way of that. You have to bend his elbow to get the full range out of them. He has what could be construed as an ankle pivot, though is mainly a transformation joint, but the hinge is too high up on the shin to look any sort of natural, and it scrapes the side panel against the leg proper. Those reused thigh pieces still have that spike up top that limits outward hip movement. Finally, the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that Soundwave's upper torso rotates 180 degrees during transformation. Sadly, this joint gets blocked completely by the apparatus that, well, it doesn't exactly lock the torso in place, but you get the picture, and the chest is allotted only a couple degrees in either direction. Sadly, Studio Series doesn't seem to put as great a focus on articulation as the War for Cybertron trilogy does, though by no means is Soundwave a brick. He's just limited in some very specific, very frustrating ways. I've hardly said a positive word about Soundwave this whole time, but my thesis still holds true. Looking at him objectively, Studio Series Soundwave has hardly a single redeeming quality about him, as both modes are severely compromised, and I suspect that's partly due to forcing it to be a retool of the prior Soundwave model, and partly due to the inclusion of the figure stand, and he does nothing special to make up for it. Still, I just think he's neat. Keep in mind that this was a Christmas present, and as such didn't require me to shell out any of my hard-earned cash, so that colors my opinion quite a lot. If you found him on your store shelf, I'd say your best bet is just to ignore him. If you liked this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews in the comments. When we return, remember what I said at the end of my Top Spin review? Well, stay tuned, because the unlikely has come to pass. This has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.